Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hawks back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right with Carlson, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Garrett. He scores! Off the face-off! Up in Zeminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They go! Scores! They score! Now they catch each other. They both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado.
And Stockholm, Sweden.
Oh, yeah. Welcome to the Calder Farmstead podcast, episode number 29 for Friday, April 16th, 2021. If you were hoping for a podcast featuring dairy milk homogenization processes, we are not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast, and my name is Cece Hockley.
And I'm Sean O'Brien.
And as always, the both of us, thank you very much for tuning in with us.
If you're new to hearing Cece and I talk about hockey, we're going to preview some of the matchups from the upcoming weekend in the AHL for you. We both watch a lot of games. We're going to talk about what we see when we watch the film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new to you, you might want to head over to our podcast feed or YouTube channel, wherever you're listening to us from, and check out episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms like PDO or the point shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out so you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes. And let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes today trying to find out where White Claw Surge will be available. The answer is everywhere. So why not spend a little more time with us talking hockey?
Now, Sean, okay, real quick sidebar here. Are you a fan of White Claws?
Absolutely. Who doesn't enjoy alcohol that tastes like TV static while someone in another room yells the name of a fruit at you?
I think that could be said for a lot of the sparkling seltzers out there, the LaCroix, the Ahas, yeah, and a lot of the sparkling alcoholic seltzers too, for sure. I mean, a lot of companies have jumped on that train, but yes, tastes like you're thinking of a fruit name. Yeah. Yes, I'm thinking of lemon. I can taste it. All right. Well, hey, enough about sparkling seltzers. Let's talk AHL hockey because that's kind of what we're good at. So first and foremost, let's preview the weekend to come here on our AHL weekend preview episode. Of course, Hershey Bears, the Hershey Bears weekend. They have a game against the Binghamton Devils on Saturday. Hopefully. My God, we're having a lot of problems in the North and the Northeast there with game cancellations. I mean, Grand Rapids and Chicago had a cancellation today on Thursday. As we're recording this, it happened. Well, it didn't happen as we were recording this, but the day of recording, it occurred. So you get what's that?
It wouldn't be the first time we previewed a series that end up not happening. That's why we, us and the Utica Comets are on a break. So
yeah, exactly. And that's why I kind of prefaced it with tentatively because yeah, everything is tentative at this point in time, but let's talk about the Bears. Hershey's power play has at least been scoring recently. I feel like Colorado and Hershey, the doldrums of the power play chart there on AHL.com making their way up that the ranking list. I mean, they've got a power play goal in 4 of their last 5 games. And Sean, #free Brian Pino, he scored a power play goal. Brian Pino on the power play. Is the Hershey Bears power play showing signs of life?
Well, if I said no, that would be a lie. There have been some small signs of improvement, but I attribute that more to individual hockey IQ than an improvement in scheme or tactical decisions. So I still overall am going to say no, but there have been at least some moments that have given me hope. I do want to point out one of those 4 power play goals was into an empty net. Can you guess who scored the empty net power play goal?
Oh, no. Don't tell me it was Brian Pino.
100% was Brian Pino. He is still not free.
I mean, I got excited. What can I say?
I don't blame you. If I saw the score sheet too and was like, no. And then I was like, oh, it's an empty net at the end of the game because he was there for killing a penalty more or less, killing a 6-on-5 than the actual power play. I also want to point out Damian Riet has fewer points in 21 games than Brian Pino does in 7. Guess which one still gets regular power play time?
I'm going to say Riot.
That's correct. Brett Leeson has 2 more points than Pino in over double the games played. Guess who still gets regular power play time?
Leeson?
Yeah. Martin Ferravari still has 0 career power play goals in 73 career AHL games, but he's still out there on power play too, hurling low percentage shots on net though.
Oof. Now, Sean, okay, you did say there were some small signs of improvement. What were those and why, in your mind, were they more player-based than coaching-based?
So I've seen some cross-ice plays and attempts at shots from better locations. I think they're player-based because they're almost universally created by Maillet and occasionally McMichael and no one else. And those are 2 top players with very good hockey IQs. They see those lanes and opportunities that others don't. And that's kind of the thing that makes me think that it's player-based and not coach-based, given that others aren't looking for these plays. They're not just failing to try and make the play. Like, they're not just failing at getting those passes through. They're not making them. And that tells me that these are players finding the lanes organically versus a coach instructing them to find them. And I think my biggest problem is that top unit is still all left-handed. And you can't have Royal Road one-timers except to exactly one side with an all left-handed power play unit. However, that isn't to say that an all left-hand power play unit can't work. I've seen it done at many levels, and it can work and excel, but you have to structure it in a certain way. You should look to outnumber at the net and create small area 3-on-1s. Let the half wall player, which in Hershey is using Maillet, attack the middle. You have to use the Oshie play. Again, the one their parent club has been using for a decade successfully. You should also have Matt Molson work pucks low and cross crease to the right half wall player, which is usually McMichael backdoor. You should work the puck to the bumper, which is recently Joe Snively, for quick shots and rebounds where Molson and McMichael crash or get tips. You should have the guy at the left half wall, again, usually Maillet, shoot for tips or rebounds as a worst case scenario and have those 3 forwards, Snively, Molson, and McMichael, crash the net when he does that. The Bears, if you've been watching their power play, do very little of this. Almost none of it consistently. Shots from the half wall are often shooting high corners, so you're not going to generate rebounds from there, and it's pretty much impossible to tip a puck without using a high stick on a shot that's going top shelf. And they get a lot of shots from the point that are into traffic and not into layered screens, and there's a difference there. If you're just throwing bodies at the front and hoping, as opposed to having an actual structure to your front net front presence, those are different outcomes. McMichael and Snively also rarely come charging in for rebounds. So if they're supposed to be crashing the net, especially McMichael off the right half wall, nobody told him. So in short, yes, an all lefty top unit can work and has been successful in other teams in the past who didn't have a righty shooting option. The Bears have 2 right shooting options, though, in Pino and Cody Clark, but whatever, we're here. Personally, I structure the power play units as Molson, Maillet, Pino, McMichael, Ledoux, Clark, Protas, AJF, Snively, and Schilling. I'd cycle in guys when injuries and taxi squads or things happen, except for defensemen. I would play 5 forward instead of Martin Ferravari or any of the other Bears defensemen if they weren't available. And if both Ledoux and Schilling were out, cool, we're running 2 5-forward units because I will not put Martin Ferravari on the power play as long as I am in charge of this pretend exercise.
Sean O'Brien for Hershey Bears coach in 2020. Oh, always a vehement decline whenever I bring a head coaching job up for Sean in the AHL. Well, hey, you mentioned AJF, Axel Jonsson-Fjällby. Has he been on the side of a milk carton for March? I mean, he had 3 primary assists just last week. I mean, that's a good sign, right?
He has definitely been missing for most of the month of March. So that was concerning. He did have 3 primary assists. So from the getting on a score sheet perspective, yes, that's a good thing. None of those assists, though, were deft playmaking assists. The first was a rebound. The second was off a 5-foot pass off a turnover that hit him in the skates. He just kind of taps it to McMichael, who went in and did Connor McMichael things and sniped it. The third one was to Brian Pino on that empty net goal, because of course it was.
Because of course it was. You think a guy comes out of witness protection and he's actually still kind of there. So, well, hey, what do you think has been going wrong for him? I mean, you know, you highlighted it well with the primary assist topic right there, but yeah, what do you think has been going wrong for AJF?
Well, first, he's not getting power play time by and large. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I guess I still don't understand, putting Riet and Clark on the power play, but whatever. Like, he was getting power play time last season a little bit here and there, but now just nothing. And if there was one role I'd pick him for, it's power play zone entries. We talked last week in a kind of failed coach's corner angle about the double drop zone entry and how it manufactures a guy with speed coming through the neutral zone. Axel Jonsson-Fjällby is the guy for that role. And other teams have used their speedsters in that role. That's what Hartford has been doing with Anthony Greco for their power play, which is really good. And he's really good at entering the zone with the puck with speed. Greco has struggled tremendously doing other things, but that's a story for another time. Sure. Axel Jonsson-Fjällby could be that guy who gets the drop pass, a play that Hershey does use. I saw them do it this past 2 games, and comes flying in the neutral zone, makes that 2-on-1, and gets the entry. That could be him, but it's not. For some reason, they don't use him in that way. And I think that's a poor choice. Second, he's gotten bounced around the lines a fair amount. And if time on ice was available, you know, AHL any day now, I would be willing to bet, and I am a betting man, that his time on ice has been trending down the past 3 weeks, 4 weeks or so. Now, the lineup card tweeted out says that he's been with McMichael and Riet for a few games now. And if you watch his shifts, he's mostly with them, but special teams also shift him around a lot, as McMichael, Maye, and Riet are all on the power play, and he kills penalties. Jonsson-Fjällby kills penalties. So when a special teams event happens, he's either sitting and his line mates are out there, or he's out there and they're sitting, which makes it going to be a little bit before he gets reunited with them. And it hurts his time on ice and opportunities that he actually has to score, because shockingly, the penalty kill doesn't generate a lot of scoring chances when you're the guys killing the penalties. Like, it occasionally does, but not nearly at the rates you do at other, strengths. I don't feel like that's too terribly controversial. The penalty kill doesn't score that many goals. So that's all to say that it hurts his time on ice, and I think it hurts his opportunities to build confidence and get going offensively. He's another guy too, and we've talked about this in Binghamton with Nolan Foote. Like, guys need to get the puck on their stick in order to feel like they're, doing stuff in the game that helps build confidence, just making small plays, getting to touch the puck. And he hasn't gotten a lot of that. I also don't think he meshes too well with Riet and McMichael, as he is someone who is good with the puck in space when he can get to full speed. But McMichael is more of a guy who is going to carry the puck himself, but he's not much of a playmaker. And while Spencer Carberry swears that Fjällby is a great shooter, I don't know if I believe that. He's also not someone who's going to, get the puck on his own. He's going to need someone who either chip it up to him in the neutral zone or to make a good play to him. And that's definitely not Damian Riet, and it's not Connor McMichael's strength either. So I don't think he really clicks with them on that line. I also don't think his skill set meshes with Hershey's system all that well. He's a speedster, and he has hands and a decent off-puck game, but he's not a guy who wins board battles or gets on loose pucks in front of the net. The Bears game is not rush-based. They almost never generate odd man rushes off the counterattack, whereas you see that from Laval, Chicago, Texas, Tucson, Providence. Hershey plays more of a dump and chase, chip and chase, cycle-heavy offense. And I'd love to see Hershey utilize him like Providence uses Jakob Laku. They turn his speed into a weapon and have plays coming through the neutral zone to give him pucks in space to the neutral zone, or they'll, basically do pseudo icings, and he knows to gun it, and he'll win that race and then generate a rush chance from that kind of play. But that's not how he's used in that system. And I don't know that that's going to change. So unless he starts, climbing up the depth chart or finding chemistry with different line mates or the one he's riding with now, I don't see that his outcomes this season are really going to improve. And I think that's sad. He's a talented player and has potential, but I don't think he's being utilized in a way that's effective.
The Hershey Bears not utilizing someone that would thrive on the power play. And yeah, I mean, what a shocker.
Free Brian Pino.
Hashtag free Brian Pino. So with all of this constructive criticism, you would think that, Hershey isn't doing too hot. I mean, their power play is getting better. Let's check the standings real quick. Well, I say that they've climbed their way up the standings, but going into 25th. Yeah, yep. They're still kind of abysmal. I mean, they're not 8% Colorado Eagles abysmal like they were earlier this season, but they're 15% even. And Hartford, like you mentioned, Anthony Greco, 30%. So doubling that. And they're in first place. So there you have it. But yeah, Hershey, second in points percentage in the North Division there. They are 14-5-2. They're going to be facing the Binghamton Devils, who are last in the North Division. They've had a rough go at it this year. 4-9-5-1 for 14 points, 0.368 points percentage, I think is more accurate barometer for them. Let's make a pick. We've got Hershey and Binghamton, like we mentioned, and they will be playing their game on I forget, but Sean, I'll defer to you while I look up when that game is. Who do you got for Hershey and Binghamton?
I mean, not a huge shocker here. We've been pretty much down on Binghamton from the word go and I have been less high on Hershey, but I also realize their schedule is very favorable as they're the only team of that kind of group of four there between them, Binghamton, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and Lehigh Valley, who has goaltending that I can squint at and believe in. I've not always been a believer in Zach Fucale, but he has looked incredibly competent this year and has maintained that for pretty much the whole season. I actually think that he's done better than Phoenix Copley, which if you would have, sent a time traveler back in time to February and been like, Phoenix Copley will be the second best goalie on this team, I'd have been like, that's a lie. You're not really from the future.
You lie.
Yeah. So that being said, I'm taking Hershey here. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They're the better team in just about everything except power play.
Imagine that. What we've been talking about for the past 10, 12 minutes. It's a no-brainer for me. I mean, Hershey, I know I've made cracks at the coaching staff for Binghamton and, just them losing, but it's a rough season for them. And I don't see them coming out with a victory against Hershey on Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. There's the game time and date. And so long and short of it, Hershey Bears. What does the model have to say?
The model has had a love affair with Hershey all season.
They really have.
And there have been a couple of times in which I've seen the output and gone in to check the coding because I'm like, that can't be right. And at no point have I altered the coding for Hershey that was set at the beginning of last season. It's the same model from last season. The only things that have changed are the numbers, the years, and the names of the teams because San Antonio became Henderson and a couple others dropped. But other than that, it's the same system. I haven't put my thumb on the scale in absolutely any way. The model likes Hershey as a 68.5% favorite. That's a biggie.
Yeah. That's big for the analytics model on a game decision for sure. Wow. Okay.
Well, also, just as a side note here, since we don't ever talk about this too much, standings projection wise, Hershey is projected to finish the season with the best points percentage at 70.03%, which is, like I said, models had a love affair with them all season. There was only one brief period in which Lehigh Valley emerged over them from the standings projection, but that was 1 week, about 5 weeks ago. Hershey has basically been the favorite in the North Division since the second week of tracking.
Gotcha. And yeah, Lehigh Valley 0.750 points percentage currently, almost 0.04 above Hershey right now. And in third place, hey, guess who finally got out of single digits in games played? The Utica Comets. They're actually playing hockey. 13 games played, and they're 8-4-0-1. So they're third in points percentage at 0.625 or 0.654 rather. So just wanted to give a little tip of the cap to Cody Sievertson and all the Utica Comets people out there. Yeah, glad that they're back on the ice and glad they're playing again. So maybe we'll cover them for a series here towards season end. But in the meantime, we have to take a break and we have to catch our breath and get ready to go into our next series. We're going to head over to the Central Division, Iowa and Grand Rapids. And yeah, stay tuned. We'll take a break. Sponsors are up. We've returned from the other side. Let's talk about the Iowa Wild and Grand Rapids series coming up this weekend. Surprisingly, a new look team for Iowa. I mean, you got Matt Boldy and a couple other additions. Derek Baribeau coming back in goal. Amazing. What a solid goaltending will do for a team.
Yeah. As the old saying goes, you find me a good goaltender, I'll find you a good coach. You find me a bad goaltender, I'll find you an unemployed coach.
Ooh. Yeah.
Now, granted, Tim Army has not had to have that conversation yet, but that is kind of how things go in hockey. And yeah, earlier in the season, Iowa was a grinding physical team that lacked a lot of that higher end talent. And I mean, that's not entirely on them. Rao, Luke Johnson, Nico Sturm, Dakota Murmis, they played a combined 2 games for Iowa this season. Mayhew and his luxurious flow started the season on the taxi squad in Minnesota. So the Iowa Wild adapted a lot more snarl and went for a physical approach to hockey, which isn't usually the most effective way to win hockey games, but it can work if you have some good luck and solid goaltending. I don't think I need to elaborate further on what happened there. Now, however, Derek Baribeau is back from whatever I'm assuming injury kept him away. Rao, Johnson, Sturm, and Murmis are still in the state of hockey. Sturm is getting games. The rest, not so much. Matthew Boldy is a good addition, and he's Matthew Boldy. If you listened to our episode a few weeks ago called The Boldy and the Beautiful, we detailed that he good.
He good.
And Kalen Addison, too, has finally started to find the score sheet on a more consistent basis. 3 out of his first 12 games, he found the score sheet. Granted, in those 3 games, he put up 8 points, but he now has points in 8 of his last 9 for points in 8 of his last 9 games for 9 points over that span. Most importantly, Gary Mayhew is back with his luxurious mane of hair that even makes me jealous. And I say most importantly, as Iowa was 3-8 without Mayhew to start the season. They are 7-7 since.
Ooh, yeah.
Now
he makes a difference. Go ahead.
He definitely makes a difference, and for a while he was dragging that offense to productivity. Kicking and screaming. And that's not to say that this Wild team is a pure skill end-to-end rush team now. Like, that's not true. They're still very physical. They're still very scrappy. If you saw the series against Chicago that was midweek, those games were not timid, ladylike, gentlemanly affairs. They were mean.
Hard-nosed. Yeah.
Yeah. I watched both of those games, and, well, those 2 teams do not like each other.
No. Central Division's just this year.
Yeah. But I think another thing, too, is their penalty kill isn't a tire fire anymore. And I can't tell if they've shifted tactics to a more traditional use of the check press, or they just got their players to finally do what they were supposed to be doing the whole time and play the check press instead of some diamond nonsense that hasn't worked in 15 years. The power play is also not a tire fire anymore. Like, if you look at the power play percentage from just the overall season, yeah, it still looks bad. They look like Hershey, which nobody wants. But they have Mayhew rotating as the bumper and left half wall spot, and that'll definitely boost your power play. Kalen Addison has gotten more comfortable as the quarterback of power play 1, something I always knew that he would. I mean, he was brilliant at World Juniors for Canada as their power play quarterback. So I knew it was only a matter of time for him to get comfortable with the speed, the physicality, the details of the pro game before he picked that up and ran with it like he has. And they've managed to make that unit competent looking. Like, they're not lighting the world on fire on the power play. And they do have the benefit of a schedule that features many bad teams on the penalty kill. But like, they're actually clicking at a rate where teams aren't just like, oh yeah, we can take all the penalties we want against Iowa because they're not going to score.
Yeah. And now the script, I don't want to say the script is flipped, but it's starting to turn a little bit more, as you said, in that direction. So let's get into the keys for Iowa in this weekend series, shall we? So Iowa and Grand Rapids, like we said, got a couple games played. What do the Wild have to do to take this one from the Griffins?
I think 3 things will be key here. Number 1, wherever Riley Barber and Giovanni Smith are, you follow them. If they go, to the bench, follow them into the bench. If they go into the locker room, follow them into the locker room. If they go into the back, well, okay, maybe don't follow them there. But they are the Grand Rapids offense right now. And Iowa needs to be all over them like J-Lo on dating apps. They need to make sure that they do not leave their sight.
Hey, you caught me off guard with that. You can't do that.
You're not my supervisor.
I'm not. That is correct.
But I will say, like, if someone else is the reason that Grand Rapids wins, so be it. But you cannot let Barber and Smith carry the Griffins to victory here. I think you shut them down, you shut down the Griffins. Second key point here, I would say, is traffic in front. Nagel and Boyle have been struggling recently. They are not the, lock it up kind of goaltending tandem that they've been earlier in the season, and have been a little off down the stretch. And I think those are related to there being more traffic in front of them recently. I would make an effort to put bodies in front there. I'm not advocating for point shots into, just a stream of, bodies, as an offensive tactic doesn't work very well. But I would make sure that there's a presence at the net when they're in the zone. I would make sure that they are trying to do layered screens as opposed to just, chaos in front of the net. But they should be having guys who are looking for tips, looking to take eyes away from him, looking to be able to bang home rebounds and crash the net when a shot is taken. That's something that I think is going to be an effective strategy for them. And last but not least, stay out of the box. Yes, I just praised your penalty kill as looking more competent and developing a more coherent tactical vision. But it's hard to shut down Barber down a man. And when you take away that lane to Barber, Chris Criscolo is suddenly open in dangerous ice. That's not good. And the Griffins' power play is dangerous. And I know it's going to be hard for Iowa to stay out of the boxes. That really hasn't been something they've excelled at all season. But this is a game where if I'm Tim Army, I'm coming into the locker room and saying, like, I know I want you to still go out there and be physical, but we cannot be getting into a parade to the penalty box like we did against Chicago, where we can trade power play goals with them. I think their power play is really good, and we should avoid giving them free opportunities. If they can hold out for less than 4 power plays for Grand Rapids and keep Barber off the board, I think they have a very good shot at sweeping the weekend.
And Iowa has come into April with a fire under their ass because looking at the schedule here, I mean, you take a 4-0 and a 5-2 victory to begin April against the Texas Stars. You take one from Chicago in a 2-game set. That's a hell of an accomplishment in and of itself to even get a victory over Chicago in a season like the season that they're having. And then they defeat Rockford on Tuesday, April 13th, quite handily, 4-1. And they have usurped the Texas Stars in the Central Division standings because, like I said, Texas started off the month of April with those 2 losses to Iowa, and they dropped 3 of 4 against the Colorado Eagles when they went up to Loveland. So Iowa now in 4th place in the Central Division at 10-9-4. That's a .522 points percentage. Grand Rapids just above them, .563 points percentage, 8-6-2 record. So, yeah.
Iowa has also usurped Texas in the point standings projections. I don't know if you saw my tweet about when I put new graphs up to date, but the like if you look at the standings projections over time, the path that Texas and Iowa have taken here is absolutely fascinating. It's like looking into a mirror where Texas started off so hot and has just come crashing down, and Iowa started off so miserably and is just skyrocketing right now. It's really interesting. They are now projected to finish in 4th place in the Central Division with a 52.98 points percentage.
Nice. It's old Iowa against new Iowa, and in that mirrored image, they're always going to be attached at the hip in that regard. So, all right, well, let's talk picks. Like we've said ad nauseum in this segment, Friday and Saturday, Iowa at Grand Rapids, 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for both games. I suppose I'll choose this one, man. I mean, Iowa's hot, and it's hard to go against the hot hand. And I know that it's easy to pick a split, as I've often done on the show. But I mean, with competent goaltending and special teams trending in the right direction, I'm going to pick an Iowa sweep.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That is a bold choice here.
It's a boldy choice, isn't it? You're welcome.
There you go. I think for me, I'm going to say a split, mostly because Baribeau played the back-to-back. I believe he played their weekday games this week as well. I don't think they continue to give him I don't think he plays both these games. And Iowa's backup goaltending situation is, well, it's not ideal. Let's just leave it at that. I think the game that Baribeau starts, I think that's going to be Saturday's game. So I will take Iowa on Saturday. I think Grand Rapids takes on the lesser goaltender on Friday, and I think they win that game. So that's how I'm calling it.
That's kind of what I was thinking you were going with that, with Baribeau starting, those 2 games and then coming into the weekend, getting a day off, and then starting him on Saturday. Yeah, I kind of figured you were going to pick Grand Rapids Friday and Iowa on Saturday. Last but not least, lest I forget, I'm doing better. What does the model have to say?
The model likes this is a very close matchup here. It is giving a slight edge to Grand Rapids as a 51.4% favorite in each individual game. So yes, Grand Rapids is a favorite, but a very tiny one. These are going to be tight games in terms of total team ability, perhaps not on the score sheet.
Yeah, it's always it's always fun when the model is like, oh, they're a 50.9% favorite. They're a 51.4% favorite. It's like, might as well flip a coin, So, I mean, I think you probably did the best thing by taking a split, and I'll probably be kicking myself on Monday as we record for Tuesday, but I'm going to stick to my guns. So we're going to go with that. But I know this segment hasn't been super long, but we're still going to take a break because we got a new guest coming on the show. He's not new to me and my hockey journeys as a journalist, but Murray Pam, NHL editor of Full Press Hockey, one of the first hockey journalists I actually started talking to on social media on a one-on-one basis. Not bassist. I'm a bassist. I play bass guitar, but a one-on-one bassist. Slap at the bass. Slap at the bass. Slap at the bass. Are you Jamaican or Irish? I can't tell. I love you, man. Great movie. But yes, so Murray Pam coming on the show. We're going to talk Belleville Sens with him as they play a 1-game series, even though it's just not even a series. It's 1 game, but we'll call it a series for that. Yeah, we're bringing him on to talk Belleville, a little bit about Ottawa too. So sit tight, hold on to your butts. We're going to talk some great hockey with Murray coming up after this. Covering the Central Division, now we shift to the Canadian Division. And it's not a series that we're going to be covering, but it's just going to be 1 game on Saturday, and that's going to be Belleville against the Stockton Heat of Calgary. But before we get into that, Stockton, listeners of the show know that we normally bring on our Full Press AHL Stockton Heat correspondent, Paige Seward, onto the program to talk about the Heat. But she just got done covering the game, rather, as we record this, and she's taking part in the press conference, the post-game press conference, and is going to write a game recap on that. So we decided to remain under the Full Press umbrella and look at things from the Belleville side of things. So let me introduce our next guest. He was a freelance writer for the Hockey News for upwards of 11 years, spent a little under 3 years covering the Ottawa Senators for Sporting News Canada, and he came on board to be Full Press official in April 2020, covering the Ottawa Sens, and is now the NHL editor of Full Press Hockey. And he also sometimes covers the AHL's Belleville Senators. He's one of actually the first hockey journalists I reached out to on social media, and one of the reasons why I currently work at Full Press Hockey. And almost 4 years ago, we've known each other. So from Gatineau, Quebec, Canada, Murray Pam, welcome to the program, Murray.
Hey, great to be here. And it was great, CC, and it's great to have you on board here, and also as the AHL editor at Full Press.
Thank you very much, Murray. I appreciate that. So, all righty. Well, we don't really have a series to cover, like I was mentioning in the intro to this series, quote unquote, but it's just one game. It's Belleville and Stockton. You know, they played back-to-backs both tonight on Thursday night as we're recording this and Wednesday. Both 4-2 victories for Belleville. So kind of a surprise there, although Stockton has kind of been cresting and troughing throughout this season with streaks, wins and losses, unfortunately. But yeah, Stockton finally has gotten a respite from their insane schedule of games. And Sean, why don't you kick us off, and then we'll have Murray chime in.
Obviously we record Thursday, so I have no idea how they looked in the last game. But from the sounds of like the whispers I heard, it wasn't too great. Wednesday's game, though, I at least will say they looked a lot more energetic. Stockton did than they had previously. They had some days off, which was a much needed respite, as you mentioned, from the just absolute slog of games they've been playing. In those days off, though, Michael Stone and Adam Ruzicka both joined the taxi squad for Calgary. Shocker when you lose your team's best forward and top four defenseman. You know, you may have a little more spring in your step, but those are big pieces to lose and just recover. Regardless, I didn't think Stockton looked gassed for the first time in quite a while. They had better forechecking pressure. They found their counterattack game a little bit. It doesn't sound like that carried over into Thursday, but it was at least nice to see Stockton have their legs under them for a little bit. Murray, what have you seen from the Stockton Heat so far this season?
Well, when I did see them, it was right at the beginning of the season, and they were just high-powered. Obviously, they had Connor Zary at the time as well, and he was really good, and he's proven to be a great draft pick by the Flames. And Adam Ruzicka, obviously, he was lighting it up, and I think at the time he was either first or second in scoring in the league at the time, and those two were basically unstoppable. And Belleville they couldn't stop the pair together, and as well as Martin Pospisil, and him as well. And Glenn Godden is actually who was doing very well in those games that I saw. And the games that I saw, Garrett Sparks as well came in, and he really did a really good job. And I did see actually part of the game tonight, and unfortunately not as good for Garrett, but yeah, they were more high-powered offense and that I saw them, but I have seen them the last two nights, and that offense was actually shut down by the Belleville D, and actually Philip Gustafson as well on Wednesday, more so. But tonight, Stockton they didn't really have much going for them. Again, halfway into the second period, they only had 5 shots on goal. Belleville jumped out to a 3-0 lead, so they just weren't clicking, and Belleville took advantage, and they also got a shorthanded goal as well, which kind of took the wind out of the sails of Stockton.
Yeah, and you know, I know before we started recording, we mentioned a bunch of stats and how they haven't been calling penalties up in Canada a whole lot this season, but combined 14 penalties in this game. You know, Belleville goes 1 for 8 on the power play. Stockton goes 1 for 6. And yeah, I mean, we'll be getting more into that here in just a second, but you know, the Belleville Senators, they've really snuck up on some teams this year, despite having kind of a miserable season, but they have some interesting numbers here and there that kind of, like I mentioned, I mean, you know, it doesn't explain their struggles, but some of them, let's put some of them in context. Sean, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, they've actually held their own pretty well against Stockton and Toronto. If memory calls me correctly, they're now winning the season series against Stockton and are splitting it against the Marlies, which is a little surprising, but they're getting murdered by Laval and Manitoba. So it's interesting to see that it's not just an all-around kind of struggle for them, but that they seem to match up better with Stockton and with the Marlies. Whereas, I mean, Laval's murdering everyone, so that's hardly fair. And Manitoba has kind of, like Stockton, had some high moments and some low moments. But, I mean, they beat the crap out of Manitoba, was it 7-2 not that long ago? So they definitely are not this, traditional just basement dwelling team where it's everything is wrong and nothing is going right. But there have been some interesting things. For one, they've started 6 different goaltenders. That is tied for the league lead in most number of people starting a game. Only three other teams in the AHL have 6. That's Chicago, Toronto, and Rockford. But no one has more. And we talked briefly about Mads Sogard getting signed, and the idea was to get him in a game this year. So that will give them 7 starting goaltenders. And while Gustafson has been, for the most part, a pretty decent goaltender for them, that is not true entirely of the other 5, whereas Kevin Mandolese and Joey Decourt have really struggled. And some of those I don't put on them per se, as well as the team that played in front of them in a very small sample, but it's been very much a hodgepodge of goaltending behind them. What has been interesting, though, is they've been 10th on the power play and 10th in the penalty kill in the league going into tonight. But Canada doesn't call a lot of penalties. That's why this game stands out so much. Of the 5 Canadian division teams, only Belleville is above the league average in penalty kills per game, and the entire 5-team division is below average in power plays earned per game. Of course, there are 13 penalties called in tonight's game, but it kind of shows you how uncommon that has been. For the most part of the season, Canada has basically been playing by prison rules.
I guess, but the one game I did attend, there was against Manitoba, I believe, actually, and there was actually 15 or 16 power plays in one game as well. But yeah, you're right in that. They're actually, for the most part, penalties are definitely down in the division, and you have the stats bear out. But it's I don't know why they're being called that way, but are they missing calls? Is it? I do know one thing, and I heard this the other day, is that there are less. Some of the AHL officials, due to injuries in the NHL, or just they've had to hire more officials due to COVID or whatnot. They're not publicizing it, but there are officials that have gone on COVID protocol as well. There's no list for that. They don't tell you that, and we're not aware of it. There's certain situations, but AHL officials have been working the lines in NHL games as linesmen as well. So they've called up some AHL officials as well. So maybe you have more inexperienced officials. I don't know if you've seen it. You've probably seen more games than I have to a point, and I'm not sure, but that might be one of the reasons as well.
I think an interesting little deep dive would be to see if it isn't just one crew that, like, because you have these games sprinkled in where it's like there's a crazy number of penalties, or like the way I think the game should be called, where it's like if you slash a dude, it doesn't matter what the score is or who the last penalty was, that's a slashing call. And some games are getting called like that, but by and large the rest aren't. And some of them I don't know if it's necessarily missed calls, as we're letting some of the kind of maybe sort of that could be a penalty kind of calls go. I mean, I know Laval is also just not a heavily penalized team, and having seen a fair amount of them this year, I don't think that's because they're getting away with things or there's a lower standard of officiating. It's just they're not a team that finds itself in bad positions to be, trying to water ski behind a guy.
Well, yes, that'd be correct as well. And obviously they're a speedy team as well. They're not overly physical, but again, they're more of a skilled team to watch. As far as a Belleville that I've seen, they still take a fair number of penalties, obviously. I went to one game where Alex Formenton got called for 5 minor penalties, actually. So that was one of the games they did have 9 or 10 penalties to kill off that one game. But for the most part, yeah, I think they are having to kill off 5-6 penalties per game that team as well. But they're mainly due to, as you're saying, they're probably like a lot of, like you say, water skiing, whatnot. They're just not as fast without certain players, obviously. They've lost a lot of them. We will probably get into that at some point, but they've lost so many players from last season. So they're more of a slower, maybe larger, more physical team.
You have foreshadowed very well.
Yes, he has. Well, in spite of those 2 wins, those 2 4-2 wins against Stockton, you had J.C. Beaudin, former ECHL Colorado Eagle J.C. Beaudin, scoring his first of the season tonight. You also had Zavgorodny scoring his first of the year, but Igor Sokolov scoring 20% of Belleville's goals. He's got 11 on the season. So yeah, he's making up quite a bit of the offense there for Belleville. And Godin added another goal there in the third period. But all of that success in these past couple games shoved to the side for a second. Sean, let's talk about these struggles of the B-Sens. What have your viewings told you about why Belleville has kind of underwhelmed, at least for us? We picked them second out of 5 teams in the Canadian division in our preseason rankings. So
I was
Sean,
hoping.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I was hoping you would have left that to our season review, where we get to, eat all of the bad predictions we made, and we just would have forgotten about that for a second. But it's fine. We'll take it here. But by and large, a lot of the guys that we thought would be in Belleville this year are not, and a lot of Ottawa's top prospects, by and large, are not in Belleville. I mean, Abramov is there, Lassie Thompson is there, Igor T1 Sokolov, as you mentioned, is there. But guys like Norris, Batherson, Bernard Docker, Formenton, Brandstrom, Pinto, Stutzla, Ridley Gregg. I mean, whatever is going on with Logan Brown, none of them have been in Belleville for more than a hot minute. I've liked what I've seen from Cruikshank so far, but I would not stray into calling him, one of the organization's top prospects. He very much, despite the 7 or 8 games that he's looked really good in, I'm still seeing that resume and saying, yeah, but I think not having a lot of those guys has really hurt the roster construction of the Belleville Senators. It's forcing a lot of guys who are best suited for bottom 6 roles into top 6 roles, especially when it comes to their center depth. I mean, I remember earlier in the season when we talked about Belleville and they had some call-ups and some guys go back to juniors, and we're like, I have no idea who's going to play 2C for them, but it's not a good crop that they get to choose from. And without Brandstrom too, Lassie Thompson is really the only one who makes splashes offensively. He's mobile and will come off the blue line with the puck. He'll lead a rush or really even wholeheartedly join a rush by himself. Asbrook can create offense in the blue line, but he rarely abandons it. And we talked about this with Bridgeport and their struggles. If you have defensemen who don't pose a respectable offensive threat with the puck on the blue line, in-zone defense is a lot easier, that you can just kind of collapse wingers down and play 5-on-3 down low when you're not worried about what happens when those blue liners who are open and the points get the puck. It's going to be a low percentage shot from 85 feet away, a rim around, or a D-to-D pass followed by a low percentage shot or a rim around. And that, plus you have guys who are playing a little bit above their depth chart kind of capabilities, and their center depth to begin with was kind of thin. This all kind of comes together nicely to form what has been a fair amount of their struggles.
Murray, your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, exactly. Offensively, they had a lot of struggles, obviously, and Sean nailed it. I mean, look at the players they've lost. Josh Norris, Batherson. Well, we knew Josh Norris would probably, he was debatable whether he would start in Ottawa. He did. Now look at him. He's got 13 goals. He's probably in the top, he's probably not 1-2 top rookie, but he's in the top 5 for sure. He's got about 25, 26 points already. He's turning into a power play sniper. And obviously Drake Batherson, he wasn't going to be here in Belleville this year, but he's in Ottawa. Formenton now, who started in Belleville, is now in Ottawa. Pierre Dorian said on trade deadline day, he's not going back to Belleville at all. So he's there to stay. So you got him. So basically, you lost Brandstrom because he's not going back to Belleville. We know that. He's there to stay. They traded Mike Riley. There's no way he's going back. So there's a lot of offense. Obviously, last year, too, they had Philip Schlappick. They had Rudy Bowsers as well. So there was a lot of offense there last year. I mean, they do have Abramov, but again, he doesn't have the horses to play with, right? And as well, so when they started, they were basically starting with some amateur tryout guys. They're starting with mainly junior age players this season, and that's one of the reasons for the poor start. Obviously, they had the junior guys, and they're still eligible to play to overage. Igor Sokolov, who's amazing right now, as you said, CC, 11 goals now in 22 games. He's tied for the league in rookie goals. He's 20 years old. He's still eligible to be an overage, and as is I believe. Well, they had Wrigley Gregg, who obviously just went back to Brandon. Cole Reinhardt is 21 years old. Sorry, he's 20 years old. Sorry, he just came out of his overage year. Brandon. Mark Kaslik is 21. You got youngsters, and also the way the Senators are being basically playing around with their taxi squad. You got Belleville goes on a 7-8 game road trip out west, right? They have 1 game in Toronto, and they have 7 games between Manitoba and Stockton, quote, Calgary. They left Logan Shaw in Ottawa. He's your captain. He's probably their all-around best player, as you know, and he's an AHL veteran. He wasn't on this trip. That's 8 games. Logan Shaw is not on this team, right?
Ouch.
He was on the taxi squad previously as well. You got another veteran D from Sweden named Oli Alsing, who's only played 7 games this year due to I believe he had a wrist or arm injury. I'm going to say the 4th, 5th game of the season, cost him a whole month. He wasn't on this trip either. So there's that. And again, Clark Bishop, he started the season. He's back. He's been playing with the Ottawa Senators. He hasn't of late the last few games, but he's also in Ottawa. So it's the taxi squad. There's a little bit of a mix, and there's a lot of the Belleville players from last year are actually, like, again, this is the AHL is a development league, and you can see the development right here. The development for Belleville, these guys are now playing for the Ottawa Senators, which is actually a good thing. So this is another year, unfortunately, for Belleville where you're going to get your Sokolovs, your Kasliks, your Reinhardts. Lassie Thompson's getting there. He's probably going to be staying in Belleville another year from what I've heard. So you got guys going to be coming in. You got Angus Cruikshank, as Sean mentioned, and who's actually, I think he got a point tonight. So his point streak will end at 7 straight games, his first 7 games in the league as well. And that's one of the reasons, I guess, for the lack of offense this season. And then you have, you were talking about the goaltending. That was actually an amazing thing, actually. I talked to Troy Mann about it. There was the 6 goalies were actually used in the first 14 games.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Actually, don't forget though, 2 of the goalies were Marcus Hoberg was on rehab assignment, so there's that, and Anton Forsberg was on conditioning as well. So there's 2 goalies that were on conditioning stints. But you're correct, and Joey Decord, and you saw actually Joey Decord when he went to the NHL. He didn't those 2 games with Belleville. Yeah, he did not play well at all, but he comes back up in the NHL, and he was terrific in his stint. And unfortunately, until he got the high ankle sprain, so there was a chance he probably was going to come back and play some more games. We weren't sure. And Philip Gustafson, who actually performed quite well actually with Ottawa, he's back there to stay. And Kevin Mandely's so far it's also his first year though. He's just coming out of the Quebec League, and he's actually eligible to play in the Quebec League, but they kept him obviously in Belleville all season. So he was going to be tagged as the East Coast League goalie. And unfortunately, there is no East Coast League for Ottawa, right? So they had the Brampton Beast, who unfortunately now, and then they have actually officially folded.
They have.
So
saw that news.
That's unfortunate. So again, Ottawa will be looking, or Belleville will be looking for another affiliate next year, unfortunately. We'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, we poured one out for Brampton earlier in the season. That was sad. It's always sad to see a hockey team shuttered for a good. But Yeah, it was funny. I was going back over our season preview for Belleville earlier today, thinking that we were not as high, and hopefully I was going to be able to tout that. And then I looked at it and like, no, we were pretty high on Belleville. And then looking at the names we talked about, it's like, oh yeah, like half of these guys didn't even get 10 games in Belleville. Like we talked about Ole Alsing and thinking that he might not be anyone special, but he could be a good, number 3, number 4 for them. We talked about Brandstrom. We talked about Logan's, Shaw, and Brown. And they have, yeah. And I think the biggest point we made was we thought Formenton was going to spend the year there and he was going to get to finally, like, not necessarily come into his own, but I believe our line was that Bouthers, Batherson, and beyond really took the shine off, the spotlight off of him, and that he was going to get a chance to really stand out and be the star there. And in the couple of games he played well, but just could not find the back of the net to save his life, despite lots of good chances. And then he got whisked away. So it's been somewhat of what looked like it could have been a promising season on paper for them, just really not turned out, and by really no fault of their own. Guys get hurt, guys get pulled up, and that's the name of the game for the AHL. But it seems like it has really struck Belleville more than it has some of the other teams, even the like dual affiliated ones like Utica and Syracuse, who have struggled at times to field, I mean, in Utica's case, to field a team at all. But in Syracuse, I know they've struggled with, having call-ups go for 2 teams and being forced to play guys who are very clear ECHLers in prominent AHL roles, and that doesn't work out very well.
They also talk about the lack of offense. They also Jordan Murray. It's another from last year. Also, that's a big hit on the blue line. So there really isn't any much offense coming from the back end at all. Even Lassie Thompson, like you said, he's a good puck mover. He's starting to come into his own. He only has 7 or 8 points, and he only got his first goal last night, actually, of the season. So
yeah, and I mean, I feel like having seen him play, like he's definitely been bitten by some bad luck. Like he's creating good chances, but that's that's kind of one of the problems when you don't have the scoring depth you were hoped for. Like you can make all the best pass in the world, somebody still has to put the puck in the net. So I think that's definitely plagued his numbers this year, but not necessarily been his fault.
No, definitely not. He didn't get a lot of playing time down the stretch in Finland as well. And again, no, it's definitely not his fault. He's coming into his own. Troy said that he's definitely going to need another season. So we're looking at hopefully next season is going to be his. And also, what I did like is his defense. And I was surprised actually from I never heard that he had a physical side to his game, but he's a big hitter actually. I've seen him throw some checks along the boards and stand players up at the blue line, and I wasn't actually expecting that from Thompson actually.
And that's a new part of his game. That is not something that has been a staple of his game the whole time. He's very much like he doesn't shy away from physical contact, but he's not been someone who, if him and another full-grown adult go into the corner for a puck battle, I would not be expecting him to come out with the puck 6 out of 10. But he's definitely found some physicality in the season this year, so that's been a nice plus. But I agree, he definitely I feel like he needs another season to find what I feel like is his potential. Like you could plug him into the NHL next season, but he'd be like a kind of bad number 5. Whereas if you give him another year, I think he could crack a top 4 on an NHL roster, and that's a better move for them.
Exactly. And that's, again, there's actually, I was just thinking about the defense in the future. Obviously, you got Jake Sanderson coming in as well the following season. So you're going to be loaded on the left side with Shabbat, Sanderson, and Brandstrom, which is going to be crazy on the left side. But the right side, there are some openings, definitely. Not next season. Well, even there are openings next season, actually, because really all you have is Artem Zub right now on the right side of the D. And there's Nikita Zaitsev and basically Josh Brown. And while you now have Jacob Bernard Docker, and we're not sure if Jacob Bernard Docker, he might actually, because the season's going to end roughly slated to end around the 12th now for the Senators. I believe the AHL ends on the 16th, 17th maybe. He might get
around that weekend. That 15th weekend is
he might get a game or two in Belleville at the end, but I think Jacob Bernard Docker may not see the light of day actually in Belleville, other than maybe a couple games at the end of the season. He's probably a little too, I don't say too good, but he's a little bit more of a polished defenseman, and for the AHL, and he plays an NHL style of game. Obviously, you guys have seen him at UND, and Shane Pinto is probably the same. We'll see what happens with Shane Pinto. We'll see if the Senators acquire another center over the summer, or they move Timmy Stützle to center. We'll see that. We might see that. And if that happens, you might see Shane Pinto start the season in Belleville next season, which will actually be great for actually fans of Belleville and the AHL to see Shane Pinto playing in the American League.
Yeah. One interesting thing though that you mentioned, because you brought up Jake Sanderson, is I've heard, and I mean, not from reliable rumor mills, I'm not an insider or anything, but I have definitely heard people say that they thought he would stay at college for another year.
He is. So it'll be the following season.
So we're not talking 21, 22, we're talking 22, 23.
Correct. He'll probably come out of college for the end of the 21-22 season.
Okay.
Gotcha.
He actually said that he wanted to, basically, it's how many games did they play? 20-something games?
Somewhere in there, about 24, 28.
And he still has another year eligible at the World Juniors. So he wants to play World Junior. And as well, he still wants to get games in. He also said, though, because of the pandemic, and it's his first year, he wanted to experience life on campus at university. And that's one of the reasons why he did stay.
I mean, that's a good reason. I think it's a long-held mantra that college is the best 6 years of your life. So he should get to enjoy those while he can.
You would know Sean over there at Penn State and various other universities across the United States.
8 years on a college campus. You bet I know.
Woo! There you go. Sean O'Brien, Mr. University. There's a new nickname for you.
All right. Cece, do you have anything, or do we want to get into picks here?
Oh, I was just going to make a quick comment about the standings, just to kind of take a slight pivot. But I mean, we've been talking about predicting Belleville as second in the Canadian division. Between, second place Manitoba and fifth place Belleville, there is 5 points difference, because you've got Manitoba with 24. You've got Toronto and Stockton tied with 21 points. And then you've got Belleville with 19. And all of those teams have played either 22 or 24 games through the season. So it's maybe Belleville gets hot, and maybe they do ascend to the second, and we don't look like complete idiots with our preseason picks, Sean. So
that's not what the model is looking at right now. I'm looking at the standings projections over time. I will at least say that Belleville has trended largely up in the standings projections this year, but they are projected to finish with a 42.31 points percentage, which is still solidly fourth.
Yeah, that's about what they're running right now, 0.432. So in points percentage, but hey, speaking of playing the games, you play to win the game. Belleville at Stockton, the Stockton Heat of Calgary, as we have dubbed them on the show, 2 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time on Saturday. Murray, as we do with our guests on the show, we will defer to you. Who do you think will win on Saturday?
Good question. I think I'm going to go with Stockton, only because obviously back-to-back nights, Belleville won both those games. You're going to have an angry Heat team coming in at home on Saturday to face Belleville. And Belleville will be looking forward to probably after 12 days on the road, I believe. They just want to go home.
That's completely fair. Stockton, after losing a few games, I'll submit my pick next. You would think that they would want to, finish this 3-game set on a high note and get the win and eke out a win. They haven't been completely blown out. Like Sean said on Wednesday, it was a 3-2 game until Belleville added that empty netter. So I say this is a get right game for Stockton and the Heat. come away with the victory on Saturday as well.
Well, I will say there is absolutely no way that Cale McLean is just going to be like, oh yeah, we had 5 shots on goal through halfway through the game, and that's totally fine. Like, I don't believe that will be the way that any of this goes. So I think that's a big influence there. I also, let me check really quick here who started tonight for Belleville, because if it's Gustafson,
I believe it was Mandalese.
Where's Mandalese?
Mm-hmm. So that means it's probably going to be Gustafson's net. And Sparks started, which means it's probably not going to play Sparks. Ooh. I think Belleville pulls one out.
Oh, okay.
If you would have told me that it would have been a Mandalese versus Sparks matchup, I would have gone for Stockton in that third game. But knowing that Stockton's going to be playing probably Andrew Shortridge, I don't know who that is, and Gustafson's probably going to get the start for Belleville. I'm liking that matchup for Belleville. I'm gonna play goalie matchups here. I'm gonna take Belleville to take that game.
And Sean, or actually, Murray, Sean has an analytics model that's super impressive, and he's input every game in this shortened season into this analytics model. And as we like to say, we like to quote Monty Python in these in the Calder Farmstead neck of the woods, and say to the fans that get their get their pitchforks out and get all up in arms, we like to remind them that it's only a model.
And the model,
what does the model say?
The model currently has Stockton as a 53.9% favorite in this game. But I want to point out that the model takes the combined weighted average of goaltenders for this game, because obviously I'm not going to know starting goaltenders until they're literally on the ice. So it basically weights probability by ability. And that's probably why Stockton is a bigger favorite in this game, because it doesn't know that Garrett Sparks will probably not start. So I will put that caveat in there. It is only a model.
It is only a model. Well, hey, Murray, good half hour talking with you. What were you going to say? Sorry?
I was going to say, but the game is still a couple of days away, so maybe Sparks does play.
It is
that
possible.
Could be true as well. Yeah. Well, Murray, thanks for coming on. Like I said, good half hour talking with you. And I know you're a busy guy, like I said, being NHL editor and everything, and covering Ottawa and Belleville. It's like you got so many irons in the fire and everything to take a half hour to talk Belleville with us for a little bit, and Stockton too. It's much appreciated, my friend.
Oh, I enjoyed it, guys. It's great to be on with you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll definitely have you on again when the time is right, and when the necessity presents itself. How does that sound?
Oh, love to.
Awesome. Murray Pam, NHL editor for Full Press Hockey, from one editor to another. Thanks for coming on the show, Murray.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. We'll catch you later. All right. Great insight from Murray. Great hockey mind. He's been around the NHL circles for a long time, and in covering the AHL beats too. Of course, he doesn't miss a beat. So there you have it. All righty. Well, we've got one final series to preview, and we're hopefully with his availability up in the air. I mean, we're hopefully going to bring on Kevin Lacy again. He did have to work late tonight. 8 p.m. Pacific was what he was telling me. So Sean, quite literally on the verge of burning the midnight oil out on the East Coast there. So
East Coast. I don't know what background you think this is, but it's not East Coast.
Sorry.
I have no idea what time it is here, Cece. Don't even ask.
Sorry, you're jet lagged already. Yeah, I forgot. Mr. Wanderlust Traveler Man over there. Here I am just thinking you're still in Virginia, but my mistake. Tell you what, San Jose, Texas, that's the next series and final series before the speed round. And we're going to take a break. We're going to have the sponsor say something real quick, and we'll be right back. All right. Special thanks to Murray Pam once again for joining the show. And we've got another guest. We try to bring him in twos. And definitely a friend of the program, definitely a friend of Sean and myself. Teal Town, USA, covering the San Jose Sharks and the Barracuda. Bringing them on, of course, to talk about the Barracuda and their weekend set against the Texas Stars. Once again, Kevin Lacy. Kevin, my man, how are you doing, buddy?
Good, good. I'm glad to be here. More than just a weekend set. It's 4 games in 5 days against the Texas Stars because
Very true.
we're right in the middle of some hellacious scheduling, rescheduling, whatnot. So the Barracuda have a lot of hockey, and it's been kind of hard to follow at times, but it sure has been fun. So I'm glad to be on the show, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for coming back on. We did have to, it's 8:30 Pacific time, but that also means it's what time in Sweden, Sean?
5:38.
5:30
in the morning.
in the morning. So you've got that nice dusk there in Sweden. So yeah, Sean just waking up for the day. Not really, but
Early riser.
Early riser. That's a lot of crap, but we'll I know Sean better than that. But hey, San Jose and Texas. So if I may set the table a little bit here, Texas just got done before playing San Jose a couple times this week. Texas got done going to Loveland, Colorado, playing the Eagles 4 games in 6 days. Also a wonderful 2021 scheduling. I don't want to say anomaly because it's just kind of the norm these days to play so many damn games in such a little amount of time. But Colorado, once again, taking 3 out of those 4 games from Texas. And those last 2 games, the Saturday, Sunday set, 3-0 victory, a shutout from Colorado, really limiting Texas's shots on goal. I think they only had 16 for the whole game. And then a 4-1 victory on that Sunday. And so, you get that out of the way. Texas coming into San Jose, trying to get a palate cleanser. And boy, did they ever. 7-2 victory over the San Jose Barracuda. And of course, the next day, San Jose comes back, pulls their head out of their rear end, 4-2 victory over the Texas Stars. All of that to say, take a deep breath. Does Texas's depth show up? And it's like Riley Damiani and Anthony Lewis, Nick Baptiste, all these guys that were non-existent in those games against Colorado. I mean, they showed up on that Tuesday game when they had that 7-goal game. So do they continue that, or is this just kind of a back and forth endeavor for the Stars? I mean,
I would say we have no idea. I mean, they were there for the Tuesday game, and then the Wednesday game, crickets.
Yep.
Like Texas is going to go as far as Damiani, Mascarin, and Baptiste can carry them kicking and screaming, it seems like, because Cole Schneider, has been very hit and miss. Their depth has really not found its way. I mean, and that's been the problem, is since that top line has cooled down, Cole Schneider, Anthony Lewis, they have just not found the mark in those games. And that's what's been their downfall, is that top line isn't getting it done every night. It's, well, who knows? Maybe they get some depth scoring and can squeak out a win, and maybe they won't and get shamed, 4-1 or, something like that.
Yeah, and we've talked about the goaltending situation for Texas as well. Having Thomas Scholl not make that trip to Colorado and putting Colton Point and Adam Scheel, you can't fool us. Scholl, Scheel, just because they sound the same doesn't mean they are the same. Definitely not a discount Thomas Scholl. Definitely not Thomas Scholl at all. Adam Scheel, but still a serviceable goalie. He looked good in spurts for that Saturday game that I was at. When Adam Werner got that shutout. But I mean, and then he just, let in a couple goals late, and I don't want to say lost his composure. He ran into a really formidable Colorado opponent, especially the combination of Kiefer Sherwood and TJ Tynan. But to kind of pivot from that, the goaltending situation, you got a rookie in Scheel who is just starting his professional career. And then you've got Colton Point, who has been, ever since I covered him in Idaho, he's been kind of up and down, and he's straightened himself out, at the tail end of the 1920 season with Idaho. This season, Idaho's not playing, so Point de facto going to be on the Texas Stars. So it's like you've got an ECHL goalie that's figuring it out, and a rookie goaltender in Adam Scheel. So you've also got the goaltending conundrum. Not really a conundrum. It's pretty straightforward. They're going to struggle a little bit, I think, in net as well. And yeah, they're going to let in some goals for sure. But Kevin, I don't want you to just, we don't want to just leave you sitting there while we talk Texas. Of course, we're going to talk Barracuda now. And
I was going to say too, here on the flip side, we've talked about how Texas has been kind of inconsistent in finding depth scoring. The same is true of San Jose, who I remember the last time we talked to Kevin, we're like, if Joachim Blichfield doesn't score, who scores? And the answer is, well, Alexander True. And then it's like, well, if True or Blichfield don't score, who scores? And then it's like, you got me there.
if you're not a Dane on the Barracuda, there might be some scoring issues there. Now, the Barracuda have had some reinforcements since the last time I was on your show here, because Ivan Chikovich came back from the KHL, who had a very fine year, finally getting some decent playing time, because I don't think he was deployed the best last year, not to mention that he seemed really down on himself last year as well. And they also got Scott Reedy from the University of Minnesota after his 4 years. So both of those players were able to score in a shootout loss to Henderson at the end of last week, or I guess, I don't know. We've had so many games that I can't even keep track of them. That might have been the middle of last week, but that was a trade deadline, and it feels like about 8 games ago. So
right.
The Barracuda still, in terms of your question, Sean, about who will score, I feel like we're always going to ask that question with along the same lines as who is going to play? Which player has been called up to the taxi squad on this day? Because if you go to the AHL website, there are, I think, close to 20 transactions over the last 3 days that just say San Jose, because you've got Saksachenko, who was called up after getting an NHL contract and called up to the taxi squad. And you've got Melnichuk, who was called up for an emergency situation and then sent back. Kozhinash was called up. Robbie Russo is now finally off tryout and on a contract. Greg Patterin was acquired, played last night, now up to the taxi squad. Handemark sent down and get your degree. Like, I feel like it's just that list from the old early 90s, late 80s commercials about all the different professional careers you could get into, or get your degree. And it just scrolls down on the side of the show. I know you have a scrolling ticker at the bottom, but it should probably just be the ever-changing Barracuda transaction wire, because you could probably fill up an entire show without repeating.
Oh, I'm sure. And I just looked on AHL.com. There are 42 players that have played at least one game for them this year, which is an insane number. That's almost 3 full teams in terms of 18 skaters. Actually, that's over 2, not quite 3, but that's quite short of 3. But like I was told, there would be no math. But that's a stupefying number of players for a season that only has, half the usual number of games, less than half. Like, that doesn't feel right, but here we are. And I think when we talked in the preseason and the last time we've talked, and it's also been a reoccurring theme besides who scores for this team, is the team just does not seem to have chemistry and ebbs and flows and goes over the roller coaster so many games. And that's summarized really easily. And San Jose has not won back-to-back games since February.
Well, San Jose also hasn't dressed the same lineup twice in a row, except for maybe, I think, twice this season. And that's come both in the last 2 weeks. Before that, Barracuda had not dressed the same lineup in back-to-back games one time all season. So now talking about chemistry, it does seem like the Barracuda are finding a little bit with Evan Weinger and Max Latunov, the ever dynamic duo, apparently. Max Latunov has scored 5 goals in the last, I believe it was 3 games. I would need to double check the stats on that. But Max Latunov, who was a player that you guys asked me about in the preseason, and I kind of said he's a jack of all trades, but the master of none. I've actually kind of figured out what Max Latunov is, besides being Evan Weinger's go-to guy. Max Latunov seems to be the AHL's version of Luc Robitaille. You just park him in front, and he can score. And I never really considered this before, but thinking back over the last 2 seasons where he's been with the team and led the team in scoring last season, Max Latunov does put up a lot of points in the slot right at the edge of the crease. So And he is a big body. We've talked about how lanky he is, but once he can get there, it seems like he can put the puck in the back of the net. And that's helped a lot for the Barracuda recently because Joachim Blichfeld, I won't say he's struggled, but the offense has dried up considerably. He went 8 games, or he just scored his first goal in the last 8 games. He went 7 in a row without scoring for being the Barracuda's leading scorer this season. And formerly at a point per game pace through, I believe it was 16 games, talking about where does the offense come if it's not Blichfeld. True has put up some points recently, 4 in his last 3 games, but Max Latunov has really stepped up his game and been a solid contributor to this team. So
he has 6 goals in his last 7 games.
There it is.
So yeah, apparently the answer, if True and Blichfeld don't score, it's going to be Max Latunov. And it's good to see that he's found chemistry because he's been someone that I feel like the San Jose organization as a whole has been like, he has to be better than this, right? And they've been trying to kind of find, where the best use of his skills are. And it seems like they've struggled and he's struggled to adapt because most times as a coach, you want to find what your player is good at and then put them in the positions to just keep doing that thing. And if they're doing something that's bad that they don't necessarily do that often, you can kind of ignore that. And that sounds crazy, but like playing Patrick Laine at defense is dumb because he's bad at it and doesn't have to do it that often. Whereas it seems like finding what Latunov is good at hasn't necessarily been a struggle, but it's been more of finding him more opportunities to do what he is good at. So
and with Latunov as well, I think one of the problems, especially this season, but I noticed it considerably last year, was Latunov seemed to be the guy they plug in once they fill in the rest of the lineup first. And then they say, okay, what spot do we have yet? Oh, tonight he's going to be the third line center. Oh, we lost a player last night. Maybe we need to move him to the second line. So it's good that he has that versatility to move up and down the lineup, but it seems like he can never find any consistency because he's never in the same spot back-to-back games, even in the years that aren't this year where the roster is a little more solidified. It seems like Latunov just kind of bounces all over the place. So having him with Evan Wenger, who is a very speedy, he's a two-way player type, but he's not really a creative player by any means. He's just more headstrong than anything. But they found some chemistry, and Ivan Chikovich got put on that line a couple of games ago, and it seems to be a good fit. Chikovich has played, I think, well with the Barracuda, but it almost seems like transitioning from the KHL back to the AHL, you can see that he wants to get the motor going, but he hasn't figured out at what point he needs to kick it into that extra gear. So he'll usually dish the puck off and then hope it comes back. And sometimes the Barracuda haven't been talented enough to get it back to him. But he finally got on the score sheet last night again, or Wednesday night against Texas. So he lasered a shot into the corner past Adam Scheel. And I hope that's the start of things to come for Chikovich, because I don't think he's played poorly. I just think he's trying to figure out his role with the team and with the style of the team. It almost seems like he's having to slow down for the rest of the roster, which isn't a bad thing from his perspective, but a kid who lacked confidence for most of last season goes over the KHL, puts up solid numbers, really regains his confidence, and then can't put up any points again in the AHL. That's got to be a little deflating. So hopefully this is the start of things to come, and I hope that Roy Sommer can find a way to get him going at the pace that it seems like he wants to skate at.
Quick edit on that stat for Max Latunov: 6 goals in the last 5 games, 7 goals in the last 7 games.
There you go.
Yes.
I was told there would be no math.
Sorry. Yeah. Sean. Yeah. Even though he works with numbers in the daytime, when it comes to the nighttime, he is hockey analytics man. So, but with that said, I'm just going to interject this in there because I remember those commercials, and you get a degree in computer science.
Yeah, that's what
or
I'm talking
hotel management.
Hotel management, yeah.
Or hotel management.
I
I
do
totally remember those commercials when I was a kid. I totally remember that. Yep, the Barracuda roster, it reads like that. You could have Max Latunov or Alexander True, or and just slow scrolling list.
Brinson Pashnuk or Steen Pashnuk.
Oh, Pashnuk's aplenty. Well, hey, anyway, speaking of, you mentioned Greg Patterson, acquisition from the Colorado Avalanche organization, former Colorado Eagles captain. He wore the C for the Eagles at the beginning of the season while TJ Tynan was on the taxi squad. So, in the Devin Dubnyk trade, Greg Patterson now a part of the San Jose organization, playing with the Barracuda.
And
Go ahead.
First player in Barracuda history to wear number 2, because I think that the last time this organization fielded the number 2 was Jim Vandermeer, however many years ago. So the Sharks organization is very weird about their jersey number issuance. I don't understand it. And you'll probably just get me into a rant that would only get worse if I had alcohol. So we should probably just stop there.
That's fair. And you're sober, so that's a good thing.
I am,
as well.
yes.
But I'm trying to see. You said Jim Vandermeer? I'm looking him up here.
I'm thinking that was probably 2012, 13.
11, 12. Very close. Nice off the top of the head there.
Yeah. That's the last time they had a number 2.
Wow.
The Barracuda were in Worcester.
The Worcester Sharks. Nice. Well, hey, speaking of players that were acquired at the trade deadline, or at least close to it, Alexander Barabanov.
Barabanov.
There you go.
Thank you. There was an extra A. Can I buy a vowel, Pat? Good God. So many A's in that name. Barabanov, Alexander Barabanov to the Sharks. Antti Suomela to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Bon voyage, Antti. We hardly knew ye. But yeah, what can fans expect? CUDA fans, especially from Barabanov.
Well,
go ahead, Sean.
I was going to say, despite not being a big guy, he's someone who is somehow able to win puck battles and make plays under pressure. He struggled at times to kind of make his way into the dangerous ice on the inner slot, but he has otherwise been a very good forechecker and someone with good speed and good tenacity, but he seems to kind of fade in and out in his ability to find consistent offense. He's someone who I think the Leafs maybe didn't give the fairest of chances to, and the bottom of the Toronto lineup is very cluttered with guys that are entry-level contracts or min-league contracts that are all viable, like third and fourth line players. And he just seemed like an odd man out. And he was someone who I think deserved more than just press box time or as a bounce back and forth between the AHL and the NHL, which, it's not like San Jose would ever do that to a player. So I think he should be okay. But that's what I would expect from him. Maybe not someone who finds the score sheet on a regular basis, but does a lot of little things to make ends meet.
And I think with Barabanov, I'm going to take this from the Antti Suomela perspective, which was Antti Suomela was a player who it took him a while to really find his groove with the Barracuda. And then eventually, I don't know if he ever found his groove with the Sharks really, but he definitely towards the latter half of last year and definitely the start of this season, Suomela really looked like a player who was ready to graduate from the AHL, which is hard to say for someone of his age who is a former leading scorer in Finland. You'd expect him to be well beyond the AHL level. And I feel like with Barabanov, it's kind of the same pedigree where he had some good years in the KHL, should be an NHLer. With Maple Leafs, maybe didn't have the best opportunity there. The Sharks certainly can give players opportunities if they perform. But I think with him going to the Barracuda here to start, it allows him to acclimate to the system, having other Russian players like Chikovich and Latunov there, and also Alexei Melnichuk will likely help him acclimate better when he does eventually arrive after the quarantine period. But I'm curious to see his deployment because, just as I mentioned with Latunov, even Suomela sometimes was getting bounced around all over the place. I'm curious to see how Roy Sommer uses him. And at the same note, seeing from the Sharks' history of calling players up real quick, Greg Patterin, you mentioned CC. He played last night, one game. Apparently, one game is good enough to get used to the San Jose system because now he's up with the big club. Who knows if Barabanov comes in, only gets a game or two with the Barracuda, and then goes up to the Sharks. The Sharks could definitely use the help for sure. So yeah, I don't know where he lies, but I feel like throughout this organization, there's always room for talented players, and it's just a matter of who can push through the ceiling.
And I know I made the joke of Antti Suomela, we hardly knew ye. I mean, he's been with the Sharks organization for 3 years. So, it's he's been around for a minute. So it's not a we hardly knew ye situation. But if it's any consolation regarding Greg Patterin, same thing happened with Colorado when they acquired him from Minnesota in the Ian Cole trade. Yeah, he played a few games with the Eagles and then he was up with the taxi squad. And then he was back with the Eagles. Then he was up with the taxi squad. It's like that just seems to be not just his MO, but a lot of players' MO in this season. Sean, you were going to say something?
Nope.
I was, though. With Barabanov, with this trade, Suomela and Barabanov, I look at this as an opportunity for both players to see if they can take another step, but in very short order, because given the ages of both of these players, I wouldn't be surprised if after this season, they both wind up as unrestricted free agents and head back to Europe, especially from the Sharks' perspective, which we have a history of acquiring mid 25-year-old players or mid 20-year-old players at the deadline and then just letting them go. Buddy Robinson is the prime example that drives me insane. Let's trade Tommy Wingles for Buddy Robinson and then just let him go after a very solid 13 games or whatever it was with the Barracuda. So I could see Barabanov being, the sooner he gets in from quarantine, the more opportunity he'll have. But I don't see him playing more than 5 games with the Cuda, to be honest.
And the weird thing with Barabanov is he only got signed to a 1-year entry-level contract with Toronto back in April 2020. So
that's league rule, though.
Oh,
because it's an entry level and his age, the maximum he could sign is 1-year entry level.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. I wonder why those ELCs sometimes with the older players went for only 1 year.
Yeah,
okay,
if I'm not mistaken, I think it's if you're 24 and over, max you can sign is 1 year.
Okay, gotcha. And yeah, he's 26, so that makes complete sense. Undrafted, 26-year-old left-hander. But yeah, I mean,
let's get the picks here. Unless you had some more to add there, Cece.
Nope. No, I was gonna try and transition to that, but I was doing a poor job, so I'm glad you took the wheel.
All right. Kevin, we'll let you step up first. We got 2 games on tap this weekend here. If you let me stall for at least 2 more seconds, there's a Saturday and a Sunday game, I believe.
Correct. That's correct.
Yes.
So the Barracuda played Saturday against Bakersfield because that's all we do is play against Bakersfield. And then Sunday against Ontario. Monday was off. Tuesday, Wednesday against Texas, which included a road game to Texas in San Jose. So, boy, those travel miles really tough. Then Thursday off. And then was it Friday, Saturday against the Stars? I think.
Yeah, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, and then Sunday, Monday off, and then Tuesday, Wednesday of next week against San Diego. So I'll start it off with my Texas pick. So I think that the Friday game, I think Texas rebounds because I liked how they moved the puck in their 7-2 win a lot. So I'm going to take the Stars in the third game, so to speak, and then I'm going to give the Barracuda a win here in the the finale of this 4-game set. So it'll end up being a split 2-2.
Texas loves their 4-game sets against Pacific Division opponents. I tell you what, they definitely get their money's worth in that regard. So, Kevin, if we didn't, share the outline with you, or if we did share the outline with you, then I could accuse you of stealing my picks. But since we didn't, I can't do that because I had it written down. Sean is my witness. Like he mentioned, San Jose hasn't won back-to-back games since February. So why buck the trend? Texas on Friday, San Jose on Saturday. Let's just keep going. San Jose won, San Jose lost. San Jose win, San Jose loses.
I think I'm picking a Texas sweep here.
Oh, okay.
And I think most of it is behind I think Texas's depth is at least finally starting to show signs of life. So should the Masherin, Baptiste, and Diamani, trio carry them, there's at least something to fall back on, at least it looks like. B, I trust absolutely zero of the goaltenders that San Jose currently has on the roster. And C, I know Thomas Scholl is with them, at least right now. And I think there's a chance that him and Scheel get these games, and that means Colton Point sits. Because if Colton Point plays, I'm on San Jose. But if this is a Scheel and Scholl kind of scenario here, I think Texas can win both of those games. So I'm going to take Texas for both of them.
And it was interesting because they had Scholl and Scheel on April 13th on that Tuesday, but then they ran with Scheel and Point on Wednesday. So they've got all 3 goaltenders with them right now. So that's interesting. So yeah, we'll see how the goaltending shakes out. Kevin,
we in San Jose know nothing about carrying 3 or 4 goaltenders on the roster at one time.
No, not at all.
Actually, we only have 2 at the moment. It's a miracle.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. San Jose has been known for keeping a glut of goaltenders, as it were.
And going forward, it seems like Melnichuk and Kozienic will continue to platoon between the Sharks' backup role and the Barracuda starting role, which gives Sam Harvey little opportunity to play, although he did play last night. But it seems like Melnichuk will more than likely be the Barracuda number 1, but we might still see Kozienic there from time to time. And Kozienic, I feel like, even though his numbers don't say it, I feel like Kozienic has played fine for the Barracuda this season. The games that he's made 30 saves or more, he's 3-0-2 in, I believe. So
wow,
he's been pretty good for us.
More shots, the better. That's for sure. Well, Sean, what does the model have to say about Texas and San Jose this weekend?
The model is big on Texas, as I don't think any of us are too terribly surprised. On paper, Texas looks like a much better team than San Jose, but right. Who shows up on any given night is anyone's guess. Texas is a 63.2% favorite.
Ooh.
So the model is big on Texas here. So at least I got that going for me in my Texas sweep pick.
Which is nice. Well, hey, Kevin, great to have you on again. Before we let you go, what jersey are you donning tonight? I've been trying to figure it out for the past, 30 minutes, and I just can't figure it out. So quit teasing us. What jersey are you wearing?
So of course, the Barracuda jersey is behind me here, but there's a team that was once in the American Hockey League that we need to pour one out for. It's been a while. So we're thinking about you, Milwaukee Admirals. We're thinking about you.
Ah, there you go. I'm like, what is that color scheme? I see a shoulder patch on there. Yes, Milwaukee pouring one out for this season. They'll be back next year, no doubt, for sure. So nice choice in jerseys. Well done.
Thank you.
Kevin Lacy, Teal Town, USA, joining the program to talk about the San Jose Barracuda once again. Always appreciate your insight, even more so your friendship, good sir.
Oh, well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Always happy to chat with you. Good people, folks. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. If it's your first time watching this, please do so, because CC and Sean provide great content for you and great dedication as well. So, and some laughs. But I will say, I don't know if I trust your model Rick Martel to be predicting standings and whatnot. So San Jose is going to split this weekend, no matter what the model says. So.
Yes,
All right.
yeah, the model cannot always be correct. So good.
It's only a model.
Good point there. It's only a model, correct. Kevin, thanks again, bud. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Kevin Lacy, Teal Town, USA. Always good to have him on the show. So,
Yeah.
Sean, you want to take a quick break before the speed round so we get a chance to stretch and warm up our muscles a little bit?
Yeah, it's been a marathon episode here, and even though it's 6 a.m. in Sweden, we gotta take a quick one here.
Yes, we do. We will be right back. Okay, we're done previewing the series with the deep dives that we did. Thanks again to Murray Pam and Kevin Lacy coming on covering Belleville and San Jose and those series that we're talking about. And now, I'm limbered up, stretched out a little bit. Yes, get those arms, nice and loose for a little bit of running, a little bit of speed round coming up here. Here we go. Weekend series. We'll start off with Tucson at Henderson Saturday, Sunday. Sean, who do you got?
I'm taking a split here. I think the cracks are starting to show in Henderson and the puck luck a little bit. I'm going to take them on Saturday, Tucson on Sunday.
I'm going to take, I think I'm going to do the same. Henderson isn't the mighty Henderson anymore. So Silver Knights on Friday, Silver Knights on Saturday, Roadrunners on Sunday. Okay, Friday, Utica at Providence, Shawnee.
I was really looking forward to this matchup a while ago. I still think Providence is the team to beat here. I'm taking Providence.
I'm going to go with Providence as well because 1920 wins. Bingo at Wilkes-Barre Scranton on that Friday.
Two teams that I don't trust, but I think Wilkes-Barre Scranton might be able to squeeze out a Max Lagasse start, so I'm going Wilkes-Barre Scranton.
Never bet on Bingo. Penguins. Bakersfield at Ontario. Sean, who do you have?
If there is one set of goaltenders that is more unreliable than Moonshine, it's in Ontario. I'm going Kingslayer here.
I'm going to follow you on that. Baker all the way. Saturday, Bridgeport at Hartford. Shawnee, go.
I don't know why. Everything's telling me to pick Hartford here, but I'm not gonna. I have that feeling that Bridgeport is due. I'm gonna take Bridgeport.
And I'm gonna go the opposite, just to be a contrarian. Hartford. Rochester at Cleveland on Saturday. Sean O'Brien.
Rochester got smacked around by Cleveland earlier in the week. They've got to bounce back. I'm taking Rochester here.
I'm gonna say they don't bounce back. I'm gonna say Cleveland. Chicago at Rockford.
Chicago. It's Rockford. Chicago.
Same. Wolves. Wilkes-Barre Scranton versus Syracuse at Syracuse. Sean.
I'm taking the crunch here. I don't trust Wilkes-Barre Scranton more so than they can beat Bingo. Syracuse.
Yep. Crunch all the way for sure. Last but not least, San Diego at Bakersfield.
I'm taking the goals here. I think the goals have been hot recently, and I think Bakersfield has been good enough, but not great. I'm going goals.
And I'm going to say Bako. I'm going to say they put it together and they defeat the goals on that Saturday. So there you have it. Whew. Just a
Always
little over
intense.
2 minutes. Always intense. Yes. I got to keep it together. And I rambled a little bit, stumbled out of the blocks a little bit at the beginning, but pulled it together and we finished strong. Always good. So there you have it.
All right, that's it for the show. If you guys are enjoying the show, please make sure you subscribe so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, please follow us on social media, and definitely please rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening to it from. Or if you're watching on YouTube, like the video and comment what you thought of the episode. Doing so helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. You can also follow us on social media, like I was saying, at Calder Farmstead on Twitter, at the Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. All of our social media content is not the same across all three of them, so you should follow us on all three to make sure you're getting all of our episodes, memes, posts, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Links to all of that and more can be found in our link tree, which is scrolling down below on YouTube, but for the audio version is linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, that is where the buttons for our social media will be, so you can find them easily. Cece, where can people find you?
Well, my name is CC Hockley, and first and foremost, you can find the Calder Farmstead on the Full Press Radio Network. You can find a lot of other great hockey podcasts and sports entertainment shows at fullpresscoverage.com. A nice little button up there, podcast, click, drop-down menu. you got a lot of choices. So, but thank you for listening to us. You can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at FPC_AHL and at my personal Twitter account at CCHawk. That's SEESEEHAWK. I'd say 75 to 80% of it is hockey, but hey, you throw a little pro wrestling, you throw a little music in there, and you have my personal Twitter account. If it keeps me interested, hopefully it's not going to be bullshit for you. Check out my writing at the Full Press Coverage Network at www.fullpresshockey.com. Mainly cover the Eagles and the AHL, but hey, I chime in on the Avs and the NHL occasionally as well. Sean.
My name is Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SeanObrien81. I'm also on an Instagram account that actually posts stuff at Sean O'Brien_81. Both of those, like CC's, are my personal accounts. They are the musings that goes on in my world. Most of them are hockey related, but not always. Some are pop culture and whatever I feel like shooting out into the void. If you are curious about the, model that we've been talking about that helps us pick games as well as projects future standings, evaluates players, all of that kind of thing. All of that is found on my Tableau page at bit.ly/data-dump-and-chase, all lowercase, all one word. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's DYSFUNCTION. So he can make music for you too. This has been a marathon episode, so Cece, take us home.
Gladly. That has been episode number 29 of the Calder Farmstead podcast. Thanks once again to Murray Pam and Kevin Lacy for joining the show. For Sean O'Brien, I'm CC Hockley. Thank you all for listening. We do appreciate it always. And, of course, keep your stick on the ice.